What a privilege it is to worship together, huh? It's great. Great to be back together. Great to be worshiping. Aren't we thankful for these guys who lead us in worship? It's really good. I just wanted to give a great shout out and welcome to each one of you. If I could greet you all and look you in the eyes, I'd just say thanks so much for being here. You are so welcomed, and we're so excited that you're here with us. Some travel many kilometres to be here, but you are each so special in God's eyes, and we're going to have a great week together, aren't we? Yeah. So those that don't know me, I'm Andrew, and we might even have a picture of my wife, Natalie, and my family, if we can get that up on the screen as well. Yeah, there we go. My beautiful wife, Natalie, there. We had the privilege, I think it was back in 2010, just to run this little camp called TeenStreet. And then we've had the privilege of journeying to see what God has done over the last 8 years. And we never would have expected that I'd be standing here before 600 people, and what God's done in that time. And we are worshipping an unequaled God, a God that is bigger and greater and can do greater things than we can ever think or imagine. And just seeing you here is evidence of that in my life. So let me introduce my family. There's Natalie there, and we've got twin boys. It was actually 4 years ago on camp. We actually had to go for a scan, and we went into Gatton and had this scan, and I'd never seen a pregnancy scan before. But we started looking at this scan, and all of a sudden this little area came up, and I thought, that's cool, there's a little baby. And then they moved it, and there's another little one. We found out we had twins here in Gatton 4 years ago at TeenStreet. So we've got a double blessing. We've got Jonathan and Micah there. And then little Ben is 1 year old. When I say little, he's not real little, huh? You can tell he loves his food. That boy doesn't need any help eating his food. He's a big boy, and we love little Ben, who's 1. So you're going to see us around. Please say g'day. And to be honest, I would love to hear your story. And over the course of this week, really hope to meet different ones and hear how you've come to be here and what God's done in your life throughout this week as well. But speaking on behalf of Natalie as well, our heart really is just to see you encounter God. Young people, I just want to tell you, there is a God who loves you more than you can imagine. And life takes us to all different parts. We have all sorts of different experiences, and some of them can be really painful experiences. Some can be confusing experiences. It's hard being a young person, I know, and there's challenges. But one of the things I want to say is that there is a God who loves you. There is a God who is here. And this week, whether you know God, whether you're still even not sure if he exists, or there might be some even in this room where you're like, I don't actually like you, God. You might even use the word hate. You might say, I hate you, God, for what's happened in my life. There might even be some people there that feel like that. I want to say that this is a week to open up to God. And let him meet whatever's going on in your heart. Let him meet you in that place. And my encouragement to you is to open up your life to God. Some of you might say something like, well, God, if you exist, you show me this week, please. God, if you're real, can you meet me in that place that I'm really needing you to meet me in? But open up your life to God. And you've got some amazing coaches that will encourage you on that journey. As you open up the Bible, that's where you'll find life. You'll find his truth that will set you free in your life as well. I say that from the depths of my heart, because the greatest gift I can give you is really to point you to Jesus, because he has given you the fullness of life, and that's for you to experience. He loves you so much and wants to give you life to the full. So we looking forward to that. Young people, do we want to find that fullness of life this week in Jesus? Are you keen for that? Yep. That's great. Me too. And I put myself in that position as well. I too am here to worship God, to learn about God, to open up his word, to learn from you as young people as well. I really do. I learn from you as you walk with Jesus as well. So it's my absolute privilege to be a part of this camp as well. So I want to thank you, and I've just got the absolute privilege now of introducing our communications team this year, and we have Dan, Sarah, and the awesome Doozy. So let's welcome them up to the stage.
Well, hi there. My name is Dan.
And I'm Susie,
And
together we're a doozy.
And I am the husband of one wife.
And I am the wife of one amazing husband, Dan
We
Potter.
are the parents of 2 boys.
And 1 daughter-in-law and
no cats. That's right.
Yes.
And we live in Atlanta, Georgia.
Yep. And we have just completed 29 years of being with Operation Mobilization, working with the next generation. That's
Great.
awesome. Woo!
Now, I don't know if you realize this. This month, we're also celebrating the 25th anniversary of TeenStreet around the world. And we tonight are starting our 52nd TeenStreet. And we are glad to be here.
So it's awesome for us to be able to spend this week with you guys, the next generation, our favorite group of people.
When I think of unequaled, it takes me back to when I was 14 years old, and I was in math class. And I remember that they had given me this assignment. I was in algebra class, a place I should have never been. And they gave me this assignment, and I went home, and most of the night I worked on it, and I was so happy. And I came in the next morning, and I submitted my paper. And something happened that I wasn't expecting. The teacher, Mr. Brooks, looked at it, and he said, Dan, your solution does not equal the problem.
Unequal.
And I felt so stupid.
So when I think of unequal, the first thing that came to mind for me was comparison. Because so many of us, when we think of ourselves and we think of other people, we compare. And usually for me, I don't know how it is for you, but I find myself in the lower end of the comparison. More negative, a self-image, kind of unequal happens to me.
When I think of unequaled, I think of a boxing match. Apparently there's a boxing match that's happened this afternoon between a guy called Manny Pacquiao and a guy called Jeff Horn. The guy Jeff Horn is actually the grandson of an older couple that come to my church. It's pretty crazy.
There they are.
I was going to say that's my wife beating me up there. No, it's just joking. That's good news. I got married this year, last year.
And what's your name?
And Rachel is here. I don't know where she is. I won't embarrass her, but we're made equal in the sight of God. Just to make it clear there. But when I think of unequaled, I was actually asked to fight in a boxing match when I was living up in Toowoomba. They were doing this fundraising thing, and they asked me to fight in a boxing match. And I got to tell you, I got no idea when it comes to boxing. We bought a Kinect a number of years ago as a family. Has anyone played the wireless Kinect boxing? Okay, we did that for one day on Boxing Day. That worked out well.
Yeah.
Didn't mean to do that. But the next day after we did a full day of this boxing, we barely could move our arms. Anyway, when I think of unequaled, I think of a boxing match that I was involved in with a pro boxer, and I went, toe-to-toe in the boxing ring, completely, I have no idea. He was very gracious to me, because if he was serious, I probably would have died. But I survived.
There you have it. So when I think of unequaled, I've got some lovely news that just actually downloaded into my world today. For the last little while, I've always been a dog person, and that's why I love Dan and Susie talk about having no cats. I know that there's cat lovers out here. Bless you, because I'm not one of them. I love dogs, and I've always had dogs when I was growing up, and I want to introduce you to Henry. This is my dog that I adopted today.
Wow.
Yeah. So all of the paperwork went through today, and I'm now the proud owner of a little Staffy mix Henry, and he's just a big goofball, which I just think is perfect for me. But in choosing to adopt Henry, you go onto a website like Pet Rescue, and there are so many dogs that are needing to have a home. And I needed to find the dog that was for me. I needed to find the dog that was unequaled for me. Dog that would fit my lifestyle, fit my house, all that type of stuff. And for me, today, unequaled means Henry Pup. So that's my unequaled.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. I want to tell you an unequaled story. Billy, will you give me a little bit of music first? This story is about God. You see, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now, up to that time, everything was nothing. There was nothing. Everything was dark. Everything was void. And the Spirit of God hovered over the water. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was. And God looked at the light and he said, "That's good." And he separated the darkness and he separated the light. And that was the first day. The second day, there was water. And he literally spoke into being that the water would be rising up and the water would be lowered down. And in the middle there would be an expanse. And he called this expanse sky. And then it came the third day. And on the third day, he gathered all the water that was below into one place. And dry ground appeared. And on the dry ground, he produced plants and shrubs and trees, everything with its own seed, and it would reproduce. And it says that God blessed it. And he said, "Produce." From the seeds, produce. And the ground obeyed. And God said, "It is good." Let's go to the fourth day. On the fourth day, God looked into the sky. And he separated the light and the dark. And for the day, he gave a sun to govern over the day. And he gave the moon to govern over the night. And they obeyed. And he said, "This is good." Oh, but that's not all. He also made the stars, and he set them in place. Then there was the fifth day. And on the fifth day, God looked at the oceans and the rivers and the lakes and the streams and the seas. And he said, "Let this water teem with creatures of the sea." And there were huge creatures and microscopic creatures and everything in between, every color, every size, every shape. And he looked at the sky and he said, "May the sky be filled with birds, with butterflies, with bees, every size and shape and color and sound, each with their own unique way of doing whatever birds do." And God blessed them and said, "Multiply." And they obeyed. Then came the sixth day, most incredible day, because God looked upon the land and he said, "Let the land be filled with animals." And there was livestock, there were sheep, and there were goats, and there were dogs and cats. And they were everywhere. And then there were creatures running along the ground, squirrels and hedgehogs and ants and a few snakes or two. And then there was the wild animals, lions and tigers and bears. Oh my. And God looked and he said, "This is good." And he blessed them. And he told them to multiply and fill the earth, and they obeyed. But he wasn't done. Because on that same day, God created humans. Male and female, he created them in his own image. In the likeness of God, he created them. And he told them, "Rule over the earth. Rule over the animals. I put you in charge. Multiply fill the earth. And he didn't say, this is good. When he saw humanity, he said, this is very good. But then, on the seventh day, he said nothing at all. He rested. And he blessed the seventh day. He said, this is the day that is continually to be holy. Well, back to creation. He made a Garden of Eden. And both Adam and Eve were in the garden. And the first words that God ever said to them, the very first words was, you are free. You are free to eat of anything you want in the whole garden. There are trees, there are plants, anything that's green, it's yours, except in the center of the garden, there were two trees. One tree was a tree of life. And if you were to take the fruit of that tree and eat it, you would live forever. And then there was the other tree, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And with this tree, what you would receive would be self-reliance, self-governing. It's all about me. So God said, do not eat of this tree. So I don't know how long Adam and Eve lived in the garden. Maybe a day, maybe a month, maybe for years. We don't know. But one day in the garden, they were walking along. And the cool thing, they were walking along and they were naked and they weren't ashamed. They had no insecurities. And as they went along, they came up to the tree of knowledge. And there was a snake, a serpent, the most crafty of all the animals that God had made. And he spoke to them and said, did God really say that you would die? Did God really say that you shouldn't eat it? Again, doubt started coming towards them. And they looked up in the tree and they saw, it looks good. I wonder how it's going to taste. And Eve took the first bite. And Adam
and we disobeyed. And we ate. And we hid. And we were naked. And we were ashamed. And God said, where are you? And he asked, did you eat of the tree? Yes. Yes. We did. We had a choice. And the fall happened because of the choice. So there was the one tree, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And that was the tree that represented knowing. That tree represented bad and good. That tree represented self-reliance. That tree represented self-focus. And we ate of that tree. That was the choice. But on the other side, God gave another tree in the center of the garden, and that tree was the tree of life. It was a tree of life. Well, that tree represented something completely different. That tree represented God and Adam and Eve walking in the cool of the garden, sharing life together, being naked and unashamed, full freedom. But Adam and Eve made a choice. And they came to that spot. And there was the choice to be made. And I want us just to think for a moment. The tree of knowledge of good and evil, the tree of life, this was our option. But because of that apple choice, we chose this way. And I wonder if we could just take a few moments, 2 by 2, turn to the person next to you. If you don't know them yet, please say, hello, my name is. Yeah, get to know that person next to you, just 2 by 2. All right, and here's what I want you to talk about, just for a couple moments. I'd like you just to talk about what was the result. So, because we made that choice, because of the fall, because of that choice that we as human beings, Adam and Eve, made, what are some of the results? What is life like now versus what it could have been like? So just 2 by 2, just discuss what your life looks like now or what life in general could be like. What's the results of the fall? Go ahead, take a couple minutes. Hmm? This story that Dan has been telling us, this story that we carry on talking about, is the story of us. The fall, the creation, and then the fall. And there were some consequences of the fall. You guys have been discussing some of them. And here in the Bible, it's in Genesis that we've been referring to. Here in chapter 3, here is some of the direct results of that fall. So this is when Jesus came and said, have you eaten of the tree I commanded? And the man started the blame game. And man said, the woman you put here with me, she gave me some fruit from the tree, and I ate it. Then the Lord said to the woman, so went over to the woman, what is this you have done? And the woman said, the serpent deceived me, and I ate it. So the Lord said to the serpent, because you have done this, didn't give the chance for a snake to respond, good thing. He said, cursed are you above all the livestock and all the wild animals. You'll crawl on your belly, and you will eat dust all the days of your life. And I will put enmity between you and the woman, between your offspring and hers. He will crush your head, and you will strike his heel. And I am fruit of that decision. I am deathly afraid of snakes. So I see these little signs around here saying, don't touch this snake. And I'm like, no way. If I see this snake, you'll hear a really high-pitched scream, and I will be running. And sorry if you're in my way, I probably will knock you over. I am definitely the fruit of that. And then to the woman, this is the consequences to the woman. He said, I will greatly increase your pains in childbearing. With pains you will give birth to children. Okay, and I knew that pain. 2 boys, and they were painful, but they're awesome now. Yeah? And then to Adam, he said, because you listened to your wife and ate from the tree, which I commanded you, you must not eat of it. Cursed is the ground because of you. Through painful toil you will eat of it all the days of your life. It will produce thorns and thistles for you, and you'll eat the plants of the field. So hard work for man. We don't just get the food like in the Garden of Eden. Beautiful trees, good for the eyes, and good food. We have to work for it now. These are just a few of the consequences. So we disobeyed. We ate. We were naked. We hid. We were ashamed. We're part of the fall.
So the consequences for Adam and Eve's sins were very serious. But if you were listening to what Susie said just before in Genesis chapter 3, verse 15, is that with the curse that was placed on the snake, there was actually a promise included. And the promise that God gives is that one day a child of woman, an offspring of Eve, will crush the serpent's head, and the serpent will strike his heel. This is a promise that one day a man would come and deal with the serpent once for all. And so the question that was being asked is, who is this man going to be? And when is he going to be born? And what is his life going to look like? And so this week we're going to be, you'll notice that Susie made reference to the thumbs up and the thumbs down. So we're going to be using thumbs to indicate how things are going in life. And because essentially what needed to happen for this issue of sin to be dealt with once for all, someone perfectly righteous, someone blameless, who had it all together, would have to undo the curse that had been caused through sin. So the question is, who is going to undo this curse? And if you've read Genesis, you'll know that in the years that followed the fall, things went from bad to worse, because what happens with sin is that it continues to corrupt. It's a disease that continues. And in a matter of years, things had become so bad that God said that he regretted making man. That's a pretty full-on thing, to regret that you had made humanity. And so God said that he was going to judge the world because of this sin, and he sent a flood. And you would have heard of the story of Noah. Now, Noah was described in Genesis as a righteous, blameless man. And so God chose Noah and his family to build an ark, and it had never rained before. And he acted in faith. Could you imagine building a big boat? It's never rained before. You have no need for a boat. But Noah was faithful, and he built this ark, and God chose his family, and he saved them from the judgment. So what we start to see here unfolding is God's grace being extended in the midst of the outcomes of the curse of sin. God is extending grace to people. And he extends grace to Noah's family. But could Noah possibly be the offspring that was going to crush the head of the serpent? Because it seemed to be going well for Noah. He builds the ark. He's doing well. We get the rainbow. The true meaning of the rainbow is God's covenant that he will never flood the earth again. Unfortunately, it gets misused. But the true meaning of the rainbow is that God will never judge the world again through a flood. So Noah was looking good, but then things went a bit pear-shaped for Noah. He ended up getting drunk, and, well, he didn't turn out to be that guy who was going to be the one who would crush the head of the serpent. Okay, so we keep looking. Who's the next one? Who might be the one who will deal with the head and crush the head of the serpent? We get to a man called Abraham. Initially, he was called Abram. Now, this guy had a lot of faith. God comes to him and he says, you know what, Abram? I'm going to choose you. I've chosen you to be the father of many nations. You have to obey me, and you have to go to this land that I'm going to tell you to go to, but I'm going to bless you and your offspring, and this is going to be incredible. So my question is this the one who is going to be the one who crushes the head of the serpent? Well, we learn in the Bible that he actually went to Egypt, and he had a very attractive wife. And he lied to the king of Egypt, said the lady was his sister. That's messed up. I wouldn't recommend you to do that. So he lies about this, and that's bad enough. What's worse is that he does it a second time. Okay, so Abraham was a good bloke. He did some good stuff, and he believed. He had a lot of faith, but he failed. He's not the one who's going to deal with sin and crush the head of the serpent. So let's keep moving. Who else could it possibly be? These are all bigwigs in the Bible, mind you. If you read the Old Testament, you get to Moses. Now, Moses is a mighty leader. He's done incredible things. He leads 1 million or so people out of Egypt where they are in slavery to Pharaoh. Have anyone seen the movie on Moses, like The Prince of Egypt, or I think there's The Gods of Egypt that came out just recently? We have Moses, who's this incredible character, but he's got issues as well. He's a bit of a stubborn old chap. He's got a habit of speaking to burning bushes and then arguing with the burning bush. That's pretty crazy. I'd be just saying yes, whatever the burning bush says, you do. But Moses ends up killing a guy. He actually murders someone. And in fact, as he's leading the people into the promised land, he isn't allowed to go into the promised land because he actually lacks trust in God. So he isn't the one who's going to deal with the serpent. Can you see what's going on here? There is this search for who will be the one who deals with the devil, who's going to be the one that deals with sin once and for all. Is there hope for us? The promise was made that one day the head of the serpent will be crushed ultimately. We get to the judges. If you've heard of Gideon and Jephthah and others like Samson, you just got to hear the word Samson and know this lady, well, he had a lady problem. This guy was an absolute weapon. He was a machine. He was able to take on guys with donkeys' heads, things. Hundreds of them. But these guys were messed up. They all failed in different ways. So while they were able to help Israel for different times, they ultimately weren't the ones who would deal with the serpent and crush his head. And then we keep moving through the Old Testament and we reach a guy, and this guy, he has got a pretty good resume. Who's heard of King David? This guy is Israel's greatest ever king. Okay, he deals with Goliath. He's this little teenager probably. And he's this great giant of a guy, and he's killing him with like a stone, a sling. And then he becomes king and is doing incredible things. This guy is the ultimate man. If you've got a role model, well, not all of his life was role model worthy, but the guy could play the guitar, write a lot of psalms, and then he could run out and kill a bear and a lion and then kill a giant. This guy was incredible. But guess what? He had a lady problem as well. And he committed adultery with a lady, and then he had that lady's husband killed. This is tragic, absolutely tragic. But the question is, who is the one that's going to crush the head? Because the one who crushes the head of the serpent has to be righteous. These guys, they keep doing these ones. They fall into sin. They keep doing the wrong thing. So who's it going to be? And then we keep moving through to the prophets. And if you've read the Old Testament, you get to different prophets like Jeremiah and Isaiah and Ezekiel and others who start talking about this Messiah who's going to be born, a Savior who's going to be born. These guys were calling the people of Israel to worship God, but in these prophecies, there was this mysterious prophetic word about one who was going to come. The ultimate Savior was going to be born. And they were waiting. And they were waiting. And they kept waiting. In fact, they were waiting for around 400 years where there was silence.
400 years of silence was broken by the cry of a baby. In your Bibles, you go from Malachi, which is the last book of the Old Testament. The next one is the first book of the New Testament, which is Matthew. And when we use our Bibles, it's just a page between the two. But it was 400 years of silence from God, 400 years since those words of the prophets, that the cry of a baby, the silence was broken. You guys know the story. But this baby was not just any baby. This baby, his actual entrance into the world was unequaled. You jump on YouTube and you see couples who are expecting a baby and they do little cute birth announcements. You know, they send that to their loved ones. But the birth of Jesus, there is no event in history that has been foretold as much. In fact, there are over 700 references to his birth, unequaled. And the first Christmas is where we see all of those promises from the prophets, the promise from Genesis 3:15. We see it fulfilled in the birth of Jesus. God's messenger goes to Mary, sort of interrupts her world a little bit and says, you know what, I know you have plans for a wedding, but I'm going to blow them up. Because you're about to get pregnant, and guess what? Joseph's not the daddy. But Mary, go ahead and call that baby Emmanuel, God with us. So not only was the silence broken, but it was broken in a way that is just astounding. God came to this earth in the form of a baby. It's not just Jesus' birth that is unequaled, but his life, his death, and his resurrection. Jesus is God's representative to us. It's there in his name, Emmanuel, God with us. But Jesus is also our representative to God. We're going to, across the course of this week, we're going to be using this particular hand gesture that we're going to work in. Dan Sercom and Susie have already sort of worked it a little bit. In the garden, mankind was this. God, there was a beautiful connection between mankind and God. But the fall made us this. And then we see all of those people in the Old Testament that Dan walked us through, that they may have been this, but they ended up being this. People thought that they could have been, no, they were this. And the one that was foretold is this. But you see our dilemma. We are this. Jesus is that. And mankind, ever since that fall, we've wanted to get back to this. And the only way to do it is nothing that we've done. It's what he has done, the unequal Jesus. And we're going to explain this a little bit more to you as to how this happens, where Jesus' righteousness actually comes and we take that on board, but we have to be open to it. So we have to open ourselves to it, open our hearts to it, open our minds to it. And it's nothing to do with our righteousness or our good acts or our abilities. It is everything that Christ has done for us. And Jesus, while he was here on earth, lived his life with all humanity. He was the God-man. And you might think, well, that's all good and well, Sarah, but Jesus doesn't know my life. If Jesus was on this stage and we played a game of Have You Ever? Have you ever known poverty? Have you ever been misunderstood? Have you ever been rejected? Have you ever been betrayed? Have you ever had rumors and lies spread about you? Have you ever felt like an outsider? Have you ever been tempted? Jesus would have stood for every single one of those, because he has experienced what it is to be human. He knows your experiences, and this is the glorious truth that we have. If Jesus has lived with all of humanity, as in he knows the experiences, what it is to live in this world, it also means that he can redeem all of that humanity. And Susie spoke about the trees, the 2 trees in the garden. And this week we have purposefully put a cross in the center of the stage, because in those first trees, humanity was broken. But in this tree, humanity was restored. That is the unequaled Jesus. That is the person, the Savior, the Redeemer, the friend that we are going to experience and unpack as we walk through this week. And God is saying to every single one of us this week, I love you, and my son Jesus has come for you. For you. For you. He has come for you right where you are, whether it's a hard place or a happy place. And this week for some of us, it will be our first meeting with the unequaled Jesus. But for others, it will also, those of us who have already met him, who have already aligned our hearts and our lives with him, it is an opportunity to find out more, to discover more, and to have more revealed to us of just how magnificently unequaled Jesus is. So let our hearts be the heart prayer of all those saints that have gone before us. Let us pray that throughout this week, our heart's cry is more of you, Jesus. More of you, Jesus.